The Heldrak Civil War began on July the 29th of 2021 and ended on August 2nd the same year, after the de facto Tsar Bitter called it off. This led to the dissolution of the Heldrak Republic. The war was called off for two main reasons. One of them, the two sides, those aligned with Tsar Bitter and President Dragon, had very little sword-to-sword combat. Tensions continued to rise, but nothing really came from it. However, the second reason, most likely the most significant of the two, being that Tsar Bitter had begun to organize the help and protection of larger nations. If left to escalate, a world war would have been a highly probable outcome. The followers of President Dragon were persistent in never giving up. An underground base was quickly constructed to accommodate the needs of the president's resistance, the Rollerblades, or the capital of the Heldrak Republic, which was largely abandoned during the time of the war. At the very beginning, President Bitter at the time proclaimed himself to be the Tsar of the new Heldrak Kingdom. He and along with his followers blockaded themselves within the government building of Heldrak. The opposition to his proclamation was instantaneous. After hearing the news, a few members of the previous Heldrak Republic attempted to break into the building. The Tsar, along with his followers, eventually escaped through a back window, which to this day remains broken. After this, word of these events began to spread throughout the nation, and leadership for the resistance began to form. During the war, they were also called the Republicans, Republicanists, and Helians. It soon became apparent that this was going to be a long, drawn-out conflict. Therefore, the Helians fled from the Rollerblades in search of a new place to stay in the meantime. The resistance headquarters, or base, was established by the player M0 Rad 0R. Terrabros, as it was, and still is called, was an underground hideout for all members of the resistance. It served as the main regrouping and meeting spot. During the war, however, farms, storage rooms, and secret armories were built inside of the base. Toward the end of the war, tensions rose rapidly. Tsar Bitter grew unhappy with the status quo of things. He contacted Cardivia to rally support for his side. This only hardened the Helians' belief that they could not, under any circumstances, escalate or fight in traditional combat. The Helians would have been outnumbered almost 3-1, and therefore would have been destroyed. Before they could attempt to calm the Tsar, former senator of the Heldrak Republic, Spaceman, decided to ask the Confederation of Anarchist Communes and the Empire of Ravengard for help in the case of a battle. In fact, a battle was scheduled, however many members of either side were unable to participate, and it was called off. As spying became the only form of communication the two sides had, it was clear that something had to be done about the tense situation. Spaceman and Tsar Bitter seemed to be confident in their allies' capabilities. However, President Dragon thought otherwise. He believed that if the situation continued to escalate, something terribly wrong would occur, and the war would be out of either side's hands. He was able to convince some of his members of this, and in doing so, was able to stall the inevitable war. Eventually, Tsar Bitter agreed that the stakes of a world war imposed were simply not worth it anymore. By stalling the enemy and remaining, for the most part, peaceful but confident, President Dragon and the Helians were able to return to the Rollerblades. The war is not considered a victory for either side, as it brought great ruin to the Rollerblades and the Helian Republic as a whole. One of the first commands of President Dragon was to exile Bitter and his followers. After this, efforts to rebuild became the priority. Another result of this war was the public's return to isolationism. Thanks for watching, please subscribe, it's free and it helps at the channel. Thank you. Peace out and goodbye.